What's up, friends, and happy Friday. Welcome in to a holiday edition of Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com, ESPN Kansas City as well. Thanks to everybody who's watching live on Facebook, live on YouTube. With Elijah Schmidt, our technical director, assisted by Trey Myers and Tyler Brewer, I am Sean Kellerman. And getting your holiday weekend started. Hope everybody has a great weekend full of family time, time in the sun perhaps. If you're outside in the sun, make sure that you are protected from the sun. It's a absolute bruiser out there when you're talking about a 100-plus degree heat index. So make sure you take care of yourself and get enough water, get enough air conditioning throughout the weekend. But yeah, hopefully fun in the sun, hopefully a lot of grilling out, cold beverages, whatever it is that makes you happy this holiday weekend. But thanks in the meantime for joining me here on Rock Chalk Sports. Again, if you missed anything from the show or if you've missed anything all week, check us out on YouTube. Have the archived show on YouTube, also Apple Podcasts, Apple, Spotify podcasts as well. Anything that floats your boat for checking us out. We really appreciate the likes, subscriptions, comments, everything you guys do. Really helps us grow. And yeah, hope that you guys have a great time as the summer kind of rolls on. We're up against it now. Dan and I yesterday were out at David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. You might have seen our stand-up on social media kind of talking about the progress of David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. It's been absolutely fantastic seeing the wheat lights go up on the east side. You see the foundation of the parking garage. It's eventually going to be a parking garage, hotel, shopping center that everybody knows in the Gateway District of the Kansas football area. So really cool. And again, should be ready to go, at least talking the lower bowl of the stadium when Long Island comes calling on September 4th. So it's been a blast. It seems like they're even closer to being finished than I thought they would be at this point, as we're about 2 months out. But can't say enough about generosity of David Booth and everybody who's provided so much to Kansas athletics in making this thing happen. Year 2 of the new booth, closer and closer to becoming a reality. And we'll be out there, of course, for the opener against Long Island. But right now, kind of as offseason rolls on, World Cup, that's at the forefront. Little cup check here in the opening segment. Talk about Algeria versus Switzerland and a couple other games that went down yesterday. Next segment, we're going to be joined by a special guest, Bethany Bowman. She's a reporter for Sports Radio 810 WHB, also works for 810 Varsity, and she's been in the midst of everything in Kansas City with the World Cup. So we'll get her take on everything that has been going on and the vibes over in the city of Fountains. USA is on. They'll take on Belgium on Monday night. That game's going down at Lumen Field in Seattle. Algeria eliminated last night, which we'll talk about here. But there's another game in Kansas City tonight, Ghana and Colombia. So very busy time still in Kansas City. Again, can't say enough about how awesome it is that the World Cup is not only in the USA, but in Kansas City, even in Lawrence, for Algeria having their base camp here a little bit earlier. And last month, it was a blast seeing Lawrence really embrace the Algerians. Following that, we're talking a little Royals baseball. Got a lot of injury updates. Stephen Kolek returned from a family and medical emergency list. We'll talk about that. He pitched last night. The Royals lost yet again. Updates on Cole Reagans as well, as the Royals are really dealing with a lot of attrition. Salvador Perez also having some elbow soreness. So we'll get you up to date on everything on that front. Another special guest will join us also via Zoom. It's going to be Sam Lance from the Field of 68. Sam is a KU basketball insider. He does all sorts of coverage during the season, and really curious to hear his thoughts this upcoming season for KU basketball. Also touch base with him on the NBA Jayhawks, who are not only moving places before next season, but partaking in the NBA Summer League that's coming up very shortly. So we'll hear from Sam Lance via Zoom and get his thoughts on a completely revamped Kansas basketball roster. Following that, we're going to continue our Kansas football opponent outlook. Next up is Arizona State. Yeah, we go to Big 12 conference play after the first 2 non-con games. Long Island, September 4th. Missouri on September 11th. And then you've got Arizona State. That's the September 19th game going down at Wembley Stadium. The first ever college football game at Wembley Stadium in London. KU, ASU. KU will then have the 26th weekend off before coming back home to close out non-con October 3rd against Middle Tennessee State. Remember, that was kind of a weird deal where initially Kansas was going to take on MTSU in week 1. There were talks about moving it to week 0. That didn't help. Eventually, they landed on October 3rd, so Kansas will get a week of rest, or at least, trying to adjust from potential jet lag of being across the pond for a while as they will take on ASU. How great would that be if KU can have a successful non-con, at least the first 2 games, beat Long Island, you beat Mizzou. If you go over to London and win against ASU, you get a week off looking at 3-0, 1-0 in Big 12 play. Yeah, we dream. We're going to look at things from a positive light, but there's a realistic possibility that could happen. Would be fantastic before coming home to take on the Blue Raiders and close out non-conference play. But it's all about the Sun Devils today. They, of course, will have a roster that includes former Jayhawk Lyric Rawls, who spent just 1 year here on Mount Oriad after transferring from Oklahoma State. And then we'll close out the show talking a little more World Cup. Hey, KansasNation.com, the place to be. I talked about it. YouTube at the Kansas Nation. Check out not only us live, Rock Chalk Sports 4 to 6, but any shows we've got archived on Rock Chalk Sports. Plus, we've got additional shows up right now. We have a new episode that came out just in the last 24 hours, Inside KU. Laney Boger sits down with Nate Bucati. He's kind of the soccer man in Kansas City, an entertainer, a soccer broadcaster. He's done some work with the Jayhawk Radio Network. Of course, he's hosted the Jayhawker podcast as well. Check it out on our YouTube or at kansasnation.com. Laney Boger and Nate Bucati, Inside KU. Also, social media. You probably saw some clips last night at the Kansas Nation, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Kansas Nation on Facebook. Some reels, some of the experience of downtown Lawrence as Algeria took on Switzerland in the World Cup round of 32. That was the nightcap yesterday, but of course, let's start with that here in the open. It was 2-0 as Algeria fell, and it ended up being the final game of the career of Captain Riyad Mahrez, who was here in Lawrence, of course, with his teammates, getting some shots up at Allen Fieldhouse. But after that, he announced his retirement. What an absolute battle. And this one actually was a game where Algeria had a chance. It looked in the first 7-8 minutes or so like they were absolutely going to make a run at this. And instead, it was Switzerland getting the first goal of the game as Briel Embolo scored with about 10 minutes in to this one. And then in the second half, it was Dan Ndoye scoring in the 46th minute. So pretty early in the first half. And then immediately in the second half were the 2 goals in this one. They both went to the Swiss. Algeria really, I felt like, controlled the possession of this game. Majority of the first half anyway, but they never could quite get enough good looks. And it was Switzerland who eventually made them pay. They advanced to the round of 16, and they're actually going to take on the winner of Friday's match between Colombia and Ghana. So that's tonight, again, in Kansas City. Round of 16 is going to be in Vancouver. So Switzerland, who won that game in Vancouver last night, they kind of have an advantage of getting a chance to stay there. Plus, they've got a lot of confidence in general playing there, having knocked off Canada on their home turf, if you will. So Switzerland, they're not having to deal with traveling. They're not having to deal with packing up, worrying about how are we going to get rest, going from one country to another. They stay right there in Vancouver. Colombia, Ghana, it won't be the longest flight of all time, but whoever wins that game tonight at Arrowhead Stadium will then have to go to Vancouver and take on the Swiss on Tuesday. Switzerland has not won a knockout round match since 1938, but in 1954, they won a playoff game to reach the quarterfinals. So they've reached the round of 16, but there was a smaller field back when there were 32 teams in each of the past 3 World Cups. So it wasn't a knockout round as last night's round of 32 game against Algeria was. So they haven't won one since 1938, but they are in position against either Colombia or Ghana, as I said. Again, getting back to this one, though, Algeria completely dominated the first 10 minutes. Johan Manzambi, though, of Switzerland, raced down the right side and crossed to Embolo for the tap-in. That was Embolo's 26th international goal, celebrated with a knee slide. And then Algeria was able to kind of play the game to a draw until they got to half, but it was Ndoye scoring with a blast from the top of the box that Luka Zidane, the goalkeeper for Algeria, was unable to stop. And that made it 2-0. It didn't feel at that point insurmountable for Algeria, but you knew that your back was up against it. Algeria, of course, advanced to the round of 32 as a third-place finisher. They had that electric 3-3 draw at Arrowhead on Saturday, and in that one, it was Riyad Mahrez who He's 35 years old, scoring a pair of goals. Again, Mahrez would announce his retirement after this loss. Again, so much fun tracking this Algerian team here in Lawrence. Even after they vacated the River City, you still saw a lot of Algerians be here local, and you're seeing all sorts of support from a number of businesses around Lawrence. And again, Lawrencians kind of becoming Algerians for a day, for a game, whatever it is, to support this country. Unlikely marriage of a small town in Kansas compared to one of the bigger countries in Africa. It's been an absolute blast. We wish them the best. And, it's going to be one of the amazing stories, not just of this World Cup, but of World Cup in general. This story, how special it is, the complete, again, marriage of these two places, and the respect that nobody knew existed between these two. Shout out to everybody at KU Athletics for setting up an unbelievable, welcoming base camp at Rock Chalk Park for Algeria. And shout out to everybody, all of you in the Lawrence community, for going out, supporting them, be it downtown at the watch parties, be it donning the Algeria scarves, the Algeria flags, whatever it is, wearing your green, the Rock Chalk Algeria. No matter what, it's been really special. And again, it's affected not just soccer fans, not just Algeria fans, but everybody here in the Lawrence community. It's made for such a fun 3 or 4 weeks here this summer, and we wish them the best moving forward. And who knows, maybe at some point paths will cross again. But it's been, again, a feel-good story, not just of the 2026 World Cup, but kind of representative of what the World Cup is supposed to be, with nations coming together and competing, but doing so in a respectful way. Been absolutely fantastic. Perhaps the best game of the day yesterday was Portugal and Croatia. This one, of course, featuring Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo. Portugal would end up surviving. They won 2-1 over the Croatians, and Croatia actually led this one 1-0. It was Portugal tying it when Ronaldo, on a penalty kick, went right down the middle and knotted this one up. Portugal having absolute life, and then they would score again in extra time to win 2-1. The craziest of this game, though, unquestionably, was the offsides call at the very end. Croatia looked like they found an equalizer on a Josko Gvardiol finish from close, but it was a VAR call overturning the decision. The chip in the ball detected that Croatia had touched the ball on the cross that led to the equalizer being ruled out, overturned due to offsides. The second half of this one actually had 3 goals overturned due to offsides. That, just like the Flo Balogun red card, is going to be talked about a lot, as both were results of VAR review. And again, the video assistant referee, there's a lot of good things that it provides. And I don't know, you can look at this as, hey, they shouldn't go back and ruin a moment where for 30 seconds, Croatia thought they had one of the all-time moments in World Cup history, to, okay, that elation is gone because, wouldn't you know it, it's offsides. If you ask me, he was offsides and it was the right call. Yeah, it's not the most fun way to have to go about this. It's not fun to overturn a call, but like I said, in my opinion, it was the right call. And Portugal advances, and wouldn't you know it, the round of 16, Portugal and Spain, the neighbors, doing battle in the round of 16 for the right to go to the round of 8. That's who the USA will face if the USA is fortunate enough to get past Belgium. So if the USA, without Balogun, is able to get to the round of 8, you're going to be facing a soccer monster in either Portugal or Spain. Spain, one of the odds-on favorites before this tournament to win the World Cup, alongside France, who's still in it and looks very formidable as well. That'll be a challenge, again, whether it's Ronaldo in Portugal or Spain, who has had no issues. And speaking of which, they won 3-0 yesterday. They had kind of a slow start to this World Cup. If you can remember, Cape Verde found a way to play to a draw with Spain, which, looking back, is maybe even more amazing than it was at the time. Spain yesterday, though, no problem against Austria. They won 3-0. Again, they will take on Portugal. We are pre-recording the show, so there's a game going on right now, and it's Australia and Egypt, those two doing battle. We've got Colombia, Ghana a little bit later, and then Argentina, Cape Verde will kick off here in a little bit. That's kind of a David versus Goliath, if there ever was one in this tournament. I guess without the exception of Spain against Cape Verde. So you never know what can happen. But as we get to the round of 16, after today, it'll be completely set. You've got the matchups of Paraguay and France. Paraguay, of course, getting the upset victory over Germany in the round of 32. Canada and Morocco. Spain and Portugal that I mentioned, that'll be Monday at 2 p.m. USA and Belgium will be Monday at 7 p.m. in Seattle. And then Sunday games, Brazil and Norway, that's at 3 p.m. on Sunday. Mexico and England is at 7 p.m. on Sunday. Those two teams have been as hot as anybody in this World Cup. Again, so those two pairings will face each other. Winner of Brazil-Norway, winner of Mexico-England. And then the three open spots, Switzerland awaits the winner of Colombia-Ghana. That'll be Tuesday at 3 p.m. And then Tuesday at 11 a.m., the winner of Argentina-Cape Verde, which will be underway here very shortly, against whoever won a little bit earlier today. Of course, as we pre-record the show, Australia and Egypt. So 13 of the 16 spots are filled right now in the World Cup. Algeria eliminated. You don't like seeing that. But again, what a special story and a special moment for Lawrence to be kind of burst on the world stage, and a lot of respect between those two places. And again, USA still in it. Can they get it done without Balogun? We'll preview that show Monday, or that game rather, Monday on Rock Chalk Sports. USA and Belgium. Belgium knocked USA out in a game where Tim Howard had a record 16 saves in the World Cup back in 2014. Can the USA get Belgium back? They also lost to them in a friendly back in March, 5-2. So an opportunity for some revenge for the United States of America. Been a lot of fun talking World Cup. We'll continue to do so before this tournament ends on July 19th. After this, though, we're going to go to Zoom, and we're going to bring on Bethany Bowman, sports reporter from Sports Radio 810 WHB, to talk more World Cup. That's next. ESPN Kansas City, kansasnation.com.
Yo, this is Paul Pierce, and you're watching Kansas Nation.
Celebrate the summer with savings at Crown Toyota. BZ models, 0% APR with a $500 cash incentive. RAV4 models, 4.99% APR. 2026 Toyota Tacoma, 3.99% APR. Get into a 2026 Tundra for 2.99% APR.
At the heart of a city lies the restless, the visionaries, the bold. You made the bet. You took the risk. You showed up when nobody else would. Now, success is within reach. The question is whether your finances can keep up with you. From redefining events to guiding local youth, providing lifelines of industry, or reshaping wellness across the region. You deserve a financial partner that matches your ambition. This is where Merit Trust comes in. Local people, real relationships. A team that sees your vision and says yes. Because bold business owners deserve bold financial partners. At Merit Trust, we handle the finances, so you can take care of the bold. Merit Trust Credit Union. Business, thinking, bold.
Jayhawk fans, if you haven't started to follow Kansas Nation on social, now is the time. Facebook, Instagram, X, it's Kansas Nation, and online at kansasnation.com for the latest news and information on your Kansas Jayhawks. Interviews, news conferences, daily and weekly shows, podcasts. Find it all at Kansas Nation and kansasnation.com. Kansasnation.com is presented by Game Day Men's Health Lawrence. Step up your game with Game Day Men's Health Lawrence.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports on Zoom now, and going to be joined very shortly by Bethany Bowman, a reporter for Sports Radio 810 WHB. Really quick, want to tell you about our friends at Heinen Outdoor Power Equipment. Hustle in if you're looking for a new mower or a new side-by-side. That's the place to go. Heinen Outdoor Power Equipment, partners of us here at Kansas Nation. They've got great selections and great deals throughout the year, honestly. So visit them online at HeinenOPE.com or visit Heinen Outdoor Power Equipment here in Lawrence. Bethany Bowman, reporter for Sports Radio 810 WHB. Hey, thanks for taking the time. This is a busy weekend. We've got some of our normal guests are in Italy or Canada, all sorts of places around the globe. And I thought this is a perfect opportunity to talk World Cup, right? Because this is really the story of the off season for us here when we cover KU. We had an awesome run for KU baseball, as you know, and now we're kind of in the dead of all dead periods, and we're glad the World Cup is keeping us going here. But first, just kind of take us through your coverage of what it's been like being in Kansas City, for having 4 countries come to the Kansas City area, and KC really having a chance to showcase their stuff and be so welcoming to all these countries.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, and thanks, guys, for having me on. It's been a blast, and I will say that normally here in the summer we get a little bit of a break or just at least a little chill time before Chiefs training camp ramps up. Obviously, the Royals are still playing. I don't know if they're playing for anything right now, unfortunately. Maybe just some morale right now. But yeah, normally it's a pretty chill time, and that has not been the case this summer. But no complaints. It's been so much fun. I feel like every day there's something, whether it was early on the training sessions, which was a ton of fun. People went crazy for Messi when Argentina was training. And then, of course, having the Netherlands here in Kansas City was so much fun with the big orange walk, and that kind of stuff was just what the World Cup was all about. Seeing not only those Dutch fans, but I mean, there were several Kansas City fans, and when I say several thousands, that became Dutch fans that day and just wanted to be part of the action. And that's what the World Cup is. It's just people coming together. You know, not everybody's a huge soccer fan. I think it obviously is growing the game, but you know, even if you're not super into it or know all the rules or all the specifics, it's just about, you know, community and coming together. And that's been the best part about this. I think the feedback that we've gotten from fans that have traveled to Kansas City is that this is like an amazing city that they really didn't know a lot about. And maybe there was things about America in general that foreigners, you know, had in their head. And when they came to Kansas City, it's all been so positive. They're like, the people, the way that you've welcomed us, the hospitality has just been off the charts and something that they couldn't even imagine. So that's been the best part to me, is to hear that this city has really put on a special welcoming type atmosphere for all these people that may be in our country for the first time, and maybe in our city, especially for the first time. But a lot of people that have traveled to several cities as well for the World Cup, this across the board I've heard has been by miles, by far, the best city that they've been to. So that's been so much fun, just to see everybody come together and put on a great show, and not a show, but just like a great, you know, way for them to see what we've already known. And that's that Kansas City's just an awesome city. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody is so prideful about their city, but one thing that I've always taken pride in living in the Midwest is we are, like, people say, you know, that Midwestern hospitality, but that's really what it is. And, you know, we've seen that here in Lawrence, welcoming Algeria, and they were eliminated last night. And, you know, it was not the most entertaining game of all time. It was frustrating because they actually had control of the game for about the first 10 minutes, and then Switzerland got a couple timely goals. But it's been incredible here in Lawrence, seeing all the green, not a color you usually see in Lawrence if it's not a certain day in March. But yeah, an absolute blast, and kind of the connection that was unexpected between Lawrence and Algeria. And you mentioned the Orange Walk. I want to ask you a little bit more about the Netherlands scene and how that's gone. There's been so many cool moments in Kansas City, in Lawrence, but you had the Messi hat trick when it was Argentina against Algeria. And then the scenes, like, I'm seeing Nate Bukaty on social media with all the orange of the watch party at P&L for Netherlands. And, you know, they were eliminated with a heartbreaker as well, but just kind of an atmosphere that's unexpected. I mean, we've always known that P&L is a cool place to watch a game. We've known that Kansas Cityans love partying and all that, but a lot of orange, and yeah, a lot of people embracing the city.
absolutely. And great that you mentioned Nate Bukaty, because I want to give a shout out to Stephen St. John, Nate Bukaty, all of our guys that have done a great job hosting Fan Fest and the P&L stage. Sports Radio 810 WHB has been fortunate to be a large part of all the fun and all the World Cup stuff here this summer. So great job by them. They've been putting in so many hours to, you know, host their shows and then go down there, be out in the sun and the heat for hours on end, but they love it and we love it. And we want 810 to be, who people recognize and hey, we know that guy, and they truly care too. Like Nate Bukaty, for example, and Steven as well. But I mean, Nate's a soccer guy.
Yeah.
Like that's his thing. He's, covering MLS as well. So besides, when he's back in town in KC being here on our station, but he absolutely loves soccer. He knows it. And so what better person to be hosting these things? But yeah, I mean, the Orange Walk, like you mentioned, he was hosting that day, and that was just incredible. I mean, you didn't need somebody to hype up the crowd, but if you do want someone up on stage, you'd want it to be Nate. And that was just an incredible scene to see. Like I said, it was, and I apologize, my dog is wanting to be a part of the conversation here, so you're probably hearing some barks, but they being the fans, I mean, it wasn't just Netherlands, it was Kansas City. I mean, I don't know how all these people got off work, but
Right.
I think Allie Trost Martin actually posted a funny picture of somebody with their laptop like in their hand as they're walking down Grand Street for this march. So people weren't going to miss that for anything. And you mentioned Luca. Let's get him involved here.
There you go.
Always
Dan's gonna be jealous.
Always cute to have.
Look at that. Yeah.
You need
That brings me back to the COVID years. The COVID year of Zooms is everybody and their dog on video.
Thought I could get away with doing the Zoom call from home, but you mentioned Algeria. And a lot of these teams, they wanted to be here in Lawrence and in Kansas City. Like they had their pick, and that just shows too, and shows the way that these cities were welcoming. They were a great base for these teams to play in. And I think if we are fortunate to get a World Cup ever again, I mean, it's going to be top of the list for almost every team to want to be here, to base here. It's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And, now an opportunity tonight, Ghana and Colombia, Friday night at 8:30. Again, it's amazing because you're just not used to it. You're used to seeing it for American football, the Chiefs, or anybody over at the Truman Sports Complex when you have the Royals. Such a different experience. And you go back to when Kansas City was announced as a host site, it's like, oh my God, like this is so special because we've got these other massive cities around the country in Seattle and San Francisco and all these. Kansas City gets a chance to do it again tonight, which will be the final game of the round of 32, and then another opportunity to do it again in an even more important game. So it's been great seeing Kansas City continue to do that. Before, I want to ask you a few Chiefs questions because I know that fall camp's coming and, Mahomes is kind of at the forefront. But first, Sports Radio 810 has done a great job in pumping up the World Cup. And again, you mentioned Nate and Steven and everybody who has done that. What can fans expect over on Sports Radio 810 in these coming weeks and even for coverage tonight for the game in Kansas City, Colombia, Ghana with some of your colleagues over there?
Yeah, well, we're going to have, once again, FanFest, P&L. People from our station will be hosting those. I think Sterling Holmes might be out at FanFest today as well. So get out there, enjoy this last, and we do have the quarterfinal, but this last round of 32 game here in Kansas City. I think ticket prices, although still pretty hefty, it might have dropped a tad bit. So if you're trying to get to a World Cup game, now might be your chance. But yeah, we're going to continue to cover it. I think, like I said, Nate's our soccer guy, but even Steven and Sterling and Jason and Seren and all the hosts have done an incredible job of educating themselves and having the knowledge that they can to share for fans. And, again, Nate is like the expert, but
yeah,
everybody's done a really great job. So tune in, you can hear everything you need as like the normal sports fan. I know soccer is a really intricate game, so it gets difficult, but they'll keep you up to date. And then, of course, you mentioned Chiefs, and right after World Cup comes to a close, we're going to have Chiefs coverage. Stephen St. John's going to be going to training camp that first week and broadcasting live from training camp for like a whole week, I think. So that's going to be fun. Paige Winters, myself, Todd Lebo, we go up there and get a lot of social media content. Check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages. YouTube will have reports and all of that coming from training camp. And so we're really excited. Like I said, it's not the break that we usually get. Like we might take, a chill little month and then it like really ramps up. It's just been go, go, go this summer with World Cup, but that's how this year is going to be. And again, I wouldn't trade it for the world because the World Cup has been just incredible for not only us, but Kansas City as a whole and just fans. And it's been so much fun.
Bethany Bowman joining me right now, reporter for Sports Radio 810 WHB. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that you're not doing the Zoom call from Madison Square Garden, because I was understanding that you were headed up there for the wedding between Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. I mean, everything is pointing to that actually happening. Where are you at on the whole Kelce Swift thing in terms of your excitement for it? Do you care? It seems like it's actually happening. Apparently, they donated $26 million to charity before the wedding, which is just, that Midwestern hospitality, right? Because T Swift is one of ours now. But that's kind of the story of the offseason for the Chiefs. And I want you to also comment on Patrick Mahomes, anything that you've seen, anything that you've heard, because that's going to be here, like you said, with fall camp. People are going to be saying, hey, is he going to be playing September 14th against the Broncos, or are we going to let Justin Fields cook for a little bit? So comment on the Chiefs here, as fall camp will be here soon.
Yeah, first of all, regarding the Swift, I'll call it the Swift wedding. I guess it's the Kelce wedding, but I think Taylor's just so much bigger than Travis. Like, obviously Travis is awesome, but I mean, he's dating like the most famous girl in the whole world. So, but you mentioned donating $26 million. Like, that's one thing. Is I don't know how you can say a single bad thing about these two people. Like, they do good with their platform and their money. Like, I mean, these are two really good role models in my opinion. And I know you're always going to have like your haters, but I think they're a great couple. I think they, despite the speculation and maybe early on, it was like, hey, is this real? Is this kind of just a, internet fame type relationship? No, I truly do think that they found each other, and they're a really good match. And so, yeah, I think this wedding is happening in Madison Square Garden. I was also skeptical of that for a while. But I did see Patrick and Brittany were out in New York last night. I'm not really like an internet sleuth, but I did just see it pop up, and I'm like, that makes sense. All the signs are pointing to this wedding happening today. Yes, and I have heard that like the guests aren't getting a whole lot of information. Like, the guests were kind of told to go to New York and then like more info to come and like be here at a certain time, but like we'll let you know details. And that's kind of crazy because I like to know exactly what's going on if I'm traveling to a wedding and things. So, but I understand they have to do that for security purposes. So at the end of the day, it's their wedding. Yeah, I would have loved to have been invited. Never expected to be invited, but I'll be getting married in January. And if there's some way I can throw an invite to Travis and Taylor, they can totally come to my wedding.
Yeah, they didn't work their way off your guest list, I don't think, by not inviting you. I think they'd still be welcome, right?
They would still be welcome. They can bring Pat, they can bring Brittany, they can bring anybody. But no, it's awesome. I'm happy for him. And then as far as Patrick and his recovery, he looks really good. I do agree that maybe you wait it out. I don't need to see him play September 14th. But I think if it had to come down to if Pat was like, making the decision, I think he would probably be pushing to play. So really, I just want the staff to be smart. I think that they will. And I just truly want him to be ready. I don't want them to rush it. But yeah, no, I think he's looked really good in all the training sessions we've seen so far. A little bit of a limp, but like, hey guys, he just got hurt. Like, I mean, what was that? 9 months ago?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
not
crazy
even.
how much progress he's made.
Yeah, I think he's taken his recovery seriously and his rehab seriously, and he'll be as ready to go as he can coming off of a major knee injury like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to squeeze one more Chiefs question out of you, because I would love to ask about the Royals. I'm a huge Royals fan, but it's just depressing right now to talk about that. So we're kind of unfortunately in that part where, eventually we'll talk about the trade deadline and what's going to happen for the Royals. But, Chiefs excitement is going to be back. People are so hungry for it because you just went 6-11, which is completely asinine, thinking about the Mahomes era. The addition of Kenneth Walker, I think, is the big story. And of course, you've got all the drama with Rashee Rice and, whatever. You're going to have him for the majority of this season, probably. And he's going to be your wide receiver one. And we'll see what happens, see if anything good comes on that front. And hopefully Kelce has a productive season. But a lot of the issues for the Chiefs in the past have been not really having a legit running game. I mean, Pacheco had shown some things, but then he got hurt and was never really the same player. You're bringing in the Super Bowl MVP, and you talk about providing your quarterback some support. Aside from having 5 guys up front that absolutely need to protect him, because that's been the issues when the Chiefs have lost their Super Bowls in the past. You actually have a real guy back there who can help out your offense. So I guess just your excitement level for having Kenneth Walker, and how much you think that's going to help this Chiefs offense.
So excited. Huge pickup for the Chiefs. And back when everybody's taking their guesses, making their picks on who the Chiefs might be after, he was not even a name that anybody had on their radar. And then,
Right.
goes, obviously, like you said, Super Bowl MVP, starts to circulate that the Chiefs may be interested. And it's like, wow, yeah, this isn't anybody at all. I know I thought it was going to be Travis Etienne, honestly, but from Jacksonville. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
getting Kenneth Walker is huge. It can only help, right? I mean, football's a tough game, and it's complex, and to be good and to win Super Bowls, you got to have extremely smart offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, all these things. But really, it's a simple game. I mean, the run game is going to open up the pass game, and vice versa. So yeah, I just think that getting a running back like that is going to do tremendous things. It'll do wonders for this Chiefs offense. I do agree that, obviously the pass game has been the Chiefs' bread and butter for so long, and I would like to see more of a threat there. I hope that Rashee Rice can not only stay out of trouble off the field so he's available, but be productive too. I mean, all these off-field things have certainly impacted, probably his training, and I hope his focus is there, and he comes back really, truly ready to be a wide receiver one for a contending team like the Chiefs. They're going to need that. I know I've seen the Tyreek Hill potential reunion. I don't know that I like that addition. He's 32 years old, coming off of a really nasty injury as well. So
Yeah.
I do think Rashee Rice is the answer. I just need him to be focused. I need him to come in extremely ready. I do want to see like a comeback from him after all that's gone on. I do believe that people deserve second chances. And so if he can prove that, would love to see that. But again, at some point, players may be more problems than they are help to a team, whether that's on the field or with their off the field issues as well. So I'm hoping the best for Rashee Rice. He is, a all-time 1 in a million type player if he can just stay out of trouble. That's all he really needs to do. So I'm excited for that. But Kenneth Walker especially is going to only help this Chiefs offense, and it'll open up so many more things. Also hoping for a nice year from Travis Kelce, because he is getting older. He is slowing down. He's not the player that he used to be, but still one of the greatest of all time. So need a big year out of him. I think it could be an all-time year. Just got married to Taylor Swift. Go out, have a crazy season, win a Super Bowl, and then retire and call it good. So I'm hoping for that type of year.
Man, that would be awesome. Going out on top, that would be fantastic. And yeah, like you said with Rice, I mean, how often do you hear the phrase, let's start a new chapter? Rice needs to completely close the book with authority and start a new book because he has shown flashes, but he just is having one misstep after another. And the Chiefs need that guy. The Chiefs, and maybe this is at fault, I don't know, Clark Hunt, Mark Donovan, Andy Reid, these guys have been loyal, and sometimes that's not always the best thing in certain situations, but they've showed their loyalty. Now it's time for Rice to, close that book, like I said, and start a new one, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, Chiefs, they will have their training camp next month. Like you said, Stephen St. John will be out there. Sports Radio 810 WHB. They've got great coverage, and we'll bring whatever we can on KansasNation.com as well. Bethany Bowman, reporter for Sports Radio 810 WHB, first time on Kansas Nation. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's a busy holiday weekend and a lot going on with the World Cup game tonight and everything, but really appreciate your time. And yeah, hey, tell everybody on Kansas Nation where they can find you on socials as well.
Yeah, at BJ Bowman 13 is my personal, but I mean, really, I'm running the socials for Sports Radio 810 WHB. So check us out there. Give us a like, give us a follow, continue to grow our platforms there. And just want everybody to see the great coverage that all of our hosts bring. And like I said, we have a great team. Paige Winters is out at so many events. Todd Lebo is one of the hardest workers I've ever met and lucky to work with. So yeah, we're always out at something and hoping to bring all that great sports coverage to Kansas City.
Thanks again, Bethany. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch up soon.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Hey, more coming up here on Rock Chalk Sports. Thanks for listening on ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com.
Hey, Kansas fans, Coach Bill Self here, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Together, we're elevating our potential, our pride, our traditions, and our dreams. Together, we're opening up a whole new world of possibilities. Elevate your University of Kansas experience with Jayhawk checking from Central Bank. Central Bank and KU, elevating together.
Jayhawk fans, if you haven't started to follow Kansas Nation on social, now is the time. Facebook, Instagram, X, it's Kansas Nation, and online at kansasnation.com for the latest news and information on your Kansas Jayhawks. Interviews, news conferences, daily and weekly shows, podcasts. Find it all at Kansas Nation and kansasnation.com. KansasNation.com is presented by Game Day Men's Health Lawrence. Step up your game with Game Day Men's Health Lawrence.
Hey, we got new friends here at Kansas Nation. Ameritrust Credit Union, just really stoked for this partnership. You can make sure that you check them out online, Ameritrust Credit Union. Jayhawk fans, we know they show up, they pack the field house, they wave the wheat. When it comes to money, Ameritrust brings that same energy. That's because financial well-being isn't just something they offer, it's why they exist. Real people, local decisions, a team that actually knows your name. So when you're ready to improve your financial game plan, they are ready. Ameritrust Credit Union is the official financial well-being partner of Kansas Athletics. Visit ameritrust.org to learn more. Federally insured by the NCUA. All right, we're talking Royals baseball. Going to talk last night. Royals fell to the Rays 5-2. Rays scored 3 in the second, 2 in the fifth. Kind of coasted. Carter Jensen, though, hit a 449-foot home run to open the scoring for the Royals. He has now 4 leadoff homers. That is just the second catcher since 1900, I believe is what I saw. Second catcher since 1900 with 4 leadoff homers in the same season. Not a lot of catchers lead off. We know that. But Jensen has really, really had a special year. And now just continues to rake. 20 of his last 21 games, he's come up with a hit. Tough outing for Stephen Kolek, who returned. Stephen Kolek pitched last night for the Royals, his first start since welcoming a daughter a little bit earlier in the week. It was a 9-pitch first inning for Kolek, but then the 3-run second that I mentioned the Rays had was a 42-pitch inning. So an absolute grinder. Kolek saying after the game, quote, "It's definitely been a roller coaster of a week, mostly spending it in the hospital. It's definitely good to get back out here and get back out on the mound. Obviously today didn't go quite as well as I'd like, but nonetheless, it's good to be back," end quote. Kolek's daughter, back on June 25th, her name's Faye. She was born 7 weeks premature at just 3 pounds and 15 ounces. She's been in the neonatal intensive care unit since, but both she and Kolek's wife, Jessica, are doing well. Kolek saying, quote, "She's on the road on a good progression and getting back there. Just super thankful for all the doctors and nurses involved. My amount of respect that I have for all the NICU nurses, they're amazing. Hats off to all those nurses and doctors there, and just very thankful to them," end quote. Annie Rogers of MLB.com, who covers the Royals, said a little bit earlier last week that baby Kolek was born premature, and that's why there was an extended absence from Stephen Kolek. As somebody who has 2 daughters, this is somebody that I was drawn to immediately when I saw the story of Kolek, and he's been so fantastic for the Royals this season. We talked to David Lesky from Inside the Crown not too long ago about him, and his last 2 outings, Kolek, haven't been fantastic. He had a really rough one before Faye was born, but he's been a solid addition. Again, the Royals got him for Freddie Fermin, which he's not having a good year at all for the Padres. He's sub 200 right now. So a guy that I think could potentially be maybe a long-term answer for the Royals, be it back of the rotation or a bulk guy out of the bullpen. I'll be cheering for him, especially hearing this news and certainly thinking of him as hopefully he and Jessica and his daughter Faye are able to get home from the hospital and be as healthy as quickly as possible. The Rays would strike first when Taylor Walls had an RBI double. They then would get a couple fortunate bloops to extend their lead to 3-1, and eventually ran away with it 5-2 as the Royals just offensively couldn't get anything going. Salvi wasn't in the lineup. I'll mention that. But one more thing on Kolek. Carter Jensen, who again has been on fire, said of Kolek, quote, "He and his wife have been going through a lot with the birth of their child. Thankfully, everything is good with that. Just trying to support him in any way we can. For him to come out and compete the way he did tonight, I know he didn't get the result he wanted, but it shows a lot for him to be able to do that," end quote. So the Royals lose, and the record is not good. We know that it's been an absolute struggle. When you look at the standings in the American League, it's, I guess, more frustrating than anything because there are a lot of teams that are not very good in the American League. The Royals are 11 back, despite being 18 under 500 of first place in the AL Central. I say this every time, but the Chicago freaking White Sox are 45-41. They have been an embarrassment of a franchise for a long time, but there they are. They keep doing good things. They did lose on a walk-off to now a team that's also in first place, Cleveland, who's 46-42. Technically, the White Sox, having played fewer games, has a slightly better winning percentage, but those two teams are tied 4 games over 500 to lead the AL Central. Twins, who out of nowhere have had a semi-decent season, are 42-46. Tigers have had a terrible season by what they expected at 38-50, and the same can be said about the Royals, who are 35-53. The Royals have been dealing with all sorts of attrition, and I'll get to that in a second. Wild card-wise, the Royals now all of a sudden are 10 games back. It was something when you looked at that, and the Royals were 4.5, 5.5 back. You're thinking, okay, the record is no good, but look, realistically, the Royals could make a run at this. I think any hopes and dreams of that are officially over, and I think now there's no really legitimate reason to look at this Royals season and think that they'll do anything but sell at the deadline. Now, what does that mean? In my mind, as long as they're not selling Bobby, which they won't, as long as they're not selling Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione, which they won't, then anybody's on the table. Been a frustrating year, and now perhaps we know why, because there's been an injury bug for Maikel Garcia. But as I've said many times when David Leski's been on the show with us, and again, InsideTheCrown.substack.com, if you want to check out Leski's work, Maikel Garcia, Bobby Witt Jr., they're both 26 years old. Jensen's 22. Caglione is 23. That's a good offensive core. Now, that sounded better when it goes with the pitchers that you thought you were going to have as a solid core on that front. You thought you had Cole Reagans. You thought you had Chris Bubich. Seth Lugo's a little older, but he's still got a couple years in him, as does Michael Wacha. Noah Cameron has shown flashes. Now, a lot of question marks in terms of pitchers, and that leads to, okay, if the Royals do opt to trade somebody like Vinny Pasquantino or somebody, a little bit maybe further down the depth chart, if you will, are you trying to load up on pitchers? Because that's been what has mainly turned this season into a disaster. There have been a lot of frustrations, particularly in the first month when you had more healthy pitchers with the offense. But realistically, the problems this season and what has made a disaster of a season balloon into even more of a disaster, the pitchers. You have guys in the bullpen like Lucas Erceg who have not performed up to snuff and not a lot of other options. You're relying on Alex Lang, a guy who's a local guy, who's had some success, who's picked up a few saves, but has not been a star major leaguer by any stretch to close down games for you. If you don't have a bullpen, as Denny Matthews often says, you don't have anything. And to get with that, you've also got starting pitching that's struggled. Cameron is either really good or really bad. Bubich has been injured. Cole Reagans, who I'll have a word on here in a second, has been injured each of the last 3 seasons. That's been really frustrating for a guy who was an all-star back in 2024 and is supposed to be your bona fide ace. He's been struggling with the injury bug so much. Regarding Reagans, this just came out yesterday. UCL repair on his left elbow, facing a 10 to 12 month recovery. So the ulnar collateral ligament, we know a lot about that and how it's affected pitchers with Tommy Johns, and Cole Ragans has had multiple Tommy Johns. That's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a long rehab process, and one that I'm sure is frustrating for Ragans because he's had to deal with many times. This was an interesting situation for the Royals southpaw because the extent of the surgery wasn't known until he actually had the operation done. Several different options were kind of thrown about before Ragans went under the knife based on what the surgeon found once he could access the elbow fully. The Royals were operating under the assumption that it was going to be something related to the UCL and pretty much knew they weren't going to get Ragans back in what's been pretty much a lost 2026 season. JJ Piccolo said before the surgery, quote, "That's a big loss, but we're working on 2 months here without having Cole anyway, so it's not like this is a new thing. But we know how talented he is and how much he can help us. You just want the surgery to go well, which I know it will. And then Cole, having gone through it before, he knows what this challenge is. He's going to be up for it. He's in the right frame of mind. He knows what's ahead of him, and he'll be able to get back as quick as possible. Hopefully, he's a great addition to our team sometime in the middle part of next year," end quote. It was interesting that the Royals, despite this being a UCL injury, UCL repairment surgery, if you will, not calling it a Tommy John surgery, which is their UCL reconstruction that completely replaces the ligament. And again, something that Ragans has already had twice in his career. They haven't officially said that, but Ragans and Royals head athletic trainer Kyle Turner are set this weekend to address the media following the off day, which is today because the Royals, of course, are having that awkward day off with the World Cup taking place in Kansas City. The Royals will take on the Phillies 4th of July tomorrow. So a repair is different, generally less invasive, but still it's the UCL, which is kind of the 3-letter word, if you will, that you don't want to hear when talking pitchers in Major League Baseball. Royals also made a roster change due to another injury. Again, Pasquantino is still hurt, but Salvador Perez dealing with left elbow soreness. He was out of the lineup for the series finale against the Rays last night. Catcher Luke Maley was selected to the 40-man roster and called up from AAA Omaha in case something were to happen from Carter Jensen, and the Royals needed another catcher. Thankfully, that did not happen. Outfielder John Rave was optioned to AAA Omaha, and again, just calling it a little bit of soreness in the left elbow for Salvi, who has had a really frustrating year at the plate for the Royals, and we'll be wishing the best for him. We'll see if this is kind of his swan song, and you don't want him to go out this way, the 2015 World Series MVP, but undoubtedly it's been very frustrating for Salvi, very frustrating for the Royals, honestly, since the first week of the season. Royals were projected by the prognosticators and by the computers to have a very, very good 2026 season. Again, you can't project there's going to be injuries, guys not performing well. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be an all-star. He's done pretty much everything you would have hoped that he would do, but you haven't gotten the production from the beginning from Pasquantino and Perez. Garcia hasn't homered since April 30th. And again, injuries affecting all of those guys. There are some positives with Bobby. Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione are proving themselves as legit major league players, even though they're only 22 and 23 years old, respectively. Those are real guys for the Royals, and excited for the future, but a lot of work to do, undoubtedly, for JJ Piccolo, be it from a staff reconstruction standpoint, perhaps replacing Matt Quatrero or some other members of the coaching staff, and certainly pitching as well. A lot to be done, and it's a grinder. If you're in the dugout, if you're in the clubhouse, like David Lesky always talks about, you talk to your teammates and you say, all right, this is the plan. We got to win 8 of our next 11 to find a way to, be back in the wild card race. You got to win 11 of your next 14, whatever it is. You got to keep telling yourself that mindset-wise. But realistically, you wonder how many of these guys deep down know that ain't going to happen because the Royals just don't have the horses offensively or on the mound. So a tough summer so far for the Royals, and we'll have to see what moves they make. That's the big question mark, and the next thing to be excited about as a Royals fan, honestly, aside from turning on the tube every night and hoping you get to watch something fun, cheering for the boys in blue, what's going to happen over the All-Star break? Who are some potential guys that the front office can acquire that you can look forward to their success someday in the Royal Blue. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But yeah, frustrating season so far for the Royals. Again, no game tonight with the World Cup taking place. Ghana right now and Colombia preparing for a round of 32, the final round of 32 game in the World Cup. And again, then the round of 16 will be set before everybody wakes up tomorrow. Ghana, Colombia tonight at Arrowhead Stadium in the World Cup. We'll have a little bit more World Cup talk later in the show, but next we're going to go back to Zoom. We're going to be joined by another special guest, Sam Lance from the Field of 68, college basketball insider. He's going to talk all things KU. That's next on Rock Chalk Sports, ESPN Kansas City, KansasNation.com.
What's up, everybody? Dan Peterson. Everybody go check out KansasNation.com.
Celebrate the summer with savings at Crown Toyota. BZ models, 0% APR with a $500 cash incentive. RAV4 models, 4.99% APR. 2026 Toyota Tacoma, 3.99% APR. Get into a 2026 Tundra for 2.99% APR.
At the heart of a city lies the restless, the visionaries, the bold. You made the bet. You took the risk. You showed up when nobody else would. Now, success is within reach. The question is whether your finances can keep up with you. From redefining events to guiding local youth, providing lifelines of industry, or reshaping wellness across the region. You deserve a financial partner that matches your ambition. This is where Meritrust comes in. Local people, real relationships. A team that sees your vision and says yes. Because bold business owners deserve bold financial partners. At Meritrust, we handle the finances so you can take care of the bold. Meritrust Credit Union. Business, thinking, bold.
Jayhawk fans, if you haven't started to follow Kansas Nation on social, now is the time. Facebook, Instagram, X, it's Kansas Nation, and online at kansasnation.com for the latest news and information on your Kansas Jayhawks. Interviews, news conferences, daily and weekly shows, podcasts. Find it all at Kansas Nation and kansasnation.com. Kansasnation.com is presented by Game Day Men's Health Lawrence. Step up your game with Game Day Men's Health Lawrence.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com. Thanks to everybody watching live on Facebook, live on YouTube as well, or listening over on ESPN Kansas City. Want to shout out our founding partners here at Kansas Nation. Crown Automotive. Miles Schneer, the Lawrence Citizen of the Year. He and his team will get you in the vehicle that you need. If you're shopping for a Tundra, RAV4, Corolla, Camry, whatever it is, they can help you out over at Crown Automotive on South Iowa in Lawrence. If you're not local, crownautomotive.com. You can schedule Volkswagen. You can schedule Toyota service, whatever you need. Again, they've got a great service and sales staff at Crown. Really, really appreciate them helping us get on our feet here at Kansas Nation. Almost a year into this thing, so it's been a blast. Almost a year into this thing, and this is the first time that we're talking to Sam Lance. Sam Lance from the Field of 68, who is a college basketball insider. Sam joins us via Zoom. Is that fair to say, Sam, college basketball insider? Do you feel good about that?
Insider, reporter, fan, whatever you want to call me. I just love college hoops, Sean.
That's fair. Hey, you know what? Insider sounds coolest, so we'll go with that. But yeah, no, that's a great call, and you and I probably need to talk more because I'm happy to watch Dartmouth against Canisius on a Tuesday at 5 p.m. if I need to. So give me more college basketball. But hey, we got to catch up with you about a lot of things. First, the roster turnover for KU basketball. We haven't got a chance to talk to these guys yet. I'm hoping that comes out sometime this month, where Chris Tyson provides Coach Self and some of the players for us a chance to catch up with them. But we got two returners, and Cole Rosario and Paul Mbia. And maybe we should just start there before we get into all the newcomers. Cole Rosario comes out. He's the first guy to announce he's coming back. And this is after the whole, Badunga disaster and, everybody and their mom is going into the portal. Rosario comes out with this cool video walking through the tunnel of Allen Fieldhouse and immediately becomes even more of a fan favorite. Everybody loved his hustle. Everybody loved, his want to type of player that KU fans just absolutely kind of wrap their arms around. And now the fact that he's one of just two guys returning decides, he decides to come back, and KU fans are going to be thrilled about that. And then you've got Paul Mbia, who was teetering even more so. I think there was more going on behind the scenes on that front, but he comes out with a strong statement as well, saying he's coming back. Your thoughts when each of those two guys announced they were coming back to a roster that's otherwise completely different?
Yeah, I think for one, it's awesome that both are back. I think Kansas kind of needed some sort of roster continuity, just having some guys who have been there, done it, and are able. Because I mean, let's face it, this is a really young team that Kansas has. So at least a couple of guys have been through the system, know exactly what's going on. Rosario, people forget he should be coming into his freshman year right about now. So I'm really, really, really curious to see, exactly the growth that he has made. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that makes those, the typical freshman to sophomore jump. And you're like, wow, this kid is really good. He was coming in known kind of as a shooter, didn't shoot it all that great a season ago. I think that's gonna kind of be rectified this year. I think Rosario kind of needs to and will take a lot of 3-pointers. So I think that was a big one. And then honestly, Paul Mbaya, he's just from the practice clips we've seen, looks to be pretty comfortable. He's throwing those dimes down low. He's been dunking on people. So I think he's another person that freshman to sophomore year could grow a lot. And not exactly sure Christian Reeves, if he's going to be 100% healthy by the start of the season with that. I believe he had shoulder surgery. So maybe Mbaya needs to take on a bit of a larger role than expected. And, it's looking like he might be ready for that, which is intriguing. And of course, we saw, kind of how he played at the end of last year. That kind of came out of nowhere. That was just like, man, where's this guy been all year long? And two guys that I think Kansas fans should really be excited about having back, and definitely two guys that, whenever the offseason kind of started, those were two guys that I circled that was like, need these two guys back.
For sure, especially because not just, wanting them to grow as Jayhawks, but you look at it from dollars and cents, certain guys weren't going to come back for the price that Kansas was probably willing to pay, which I think is legitimate. And then certain guys, their time didn't run out, talking about eligibility or anything, but you felt like, all right, they had every chance to kind of be a real guy for KU and didn't quite get there. Well, Cole and Paul were kind of in that, middle area where it's like, these guys are oozing with talent. They're not going to be that expensive, but they could also be breakout Jayhawk players. So am I crazy? Or did Paul Mbia look a little bit more quick twitch in some of these clips we're seeing? Because, he had that backdoor pass. It looks like he's maybe even in better shape than what we saw last year. Not that he was ever in bad shape, but what I like about him is he seems to be a big that can score with his back to the basket, which KU didn't have last year out of the other two guys in the front court. So he has that ability, kind of closer to Doak on that front. But also from what I've seen, I mean, looks like he might be able to step out a little bit further away from the basket. Maybe not shooting 12-foot jumpers or anything, but, running the offense a little bit more fluidity there.
And I think also most importantly, Sean, he's a true 7-footer, which, Kansas hasn't had the last couple of seasons. He's somebody that can really just with his size kind of alter shots and change the game vertically. And I have heard that he has slimmed down a little bit so far this summer, which always, an encouraging sign. Again, not that he was, too big or anything like that, but he's probably going to be asked to do a little bit on the perimeter. Obviously, Kansas has had capable bigs like Hunter Dickinson in the past couple of years that you kind of use that zoom action with a little bit and get some of these guys, especially these little guards that Kansas has now going downhill. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what Paul Mbaya brings, because I think he's going to have to play, a lot of minutes on this team, just kind of the way things are constructed. right now. Not really a lot of true fives. So I'm excited for what Mbaya has in store, and I do think we'll see a totally different player. Kind of similar to what we saw last year at the end.
Sam Lansfield of 68 joins us here on Rock Chalk Sports on Kansas Nation. Yeah, a lot of newcomers now for this upcoming KU basketball team. And of course, going to ask you about Stokes and everything that he can bring. But Tay Kenny is interesting. He had to sit down with one of my colleagues, Greg Gurley, and Greg asked him a comp. I think it was a question actually from a fan. I don't know if you saw this social video, but Tay Kenny said a comp for him at the next level is Tyrese Maxey. And I'm thinking, man, that'd be great. He does kind of have similar build to Maxey. And I think Kenny is so important to this year's roster because I think it can go one of two ways. And maybe there's a middle ground. I don't know. But Kenny can either be a serviceable Big 12 point guard to where he's like the fifth or sixth best point guard in the 16-team conference, or he could play like a first-round NBA draft pick. And if the latter happens, then Kansas is going to be a national contender, I think. What do you like about Tay Kenny, and what are some things that you think fans can expect out of him from a production standpoint?
Yeah, it's funny. We didn't even really discuss talking points before this, and one of my bold notes I put here is TK ready or not, biggest factor.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that right there is the number one factor of what kind of this Kansas team ends up doing. So I'm kind of with you there on that. He's really interesting to me because I haven't seen him. I think at his best. Last summer, he was kind of dealing with a little bit of knee problems there towards the end whenever I was watching him, in July with Wildcat Select, and he wasn't really moving exactly, I think, the way that he's used to. But yeah, I mean, I've seen him talking with NBA guys, looking around kind of, those way too early 2027 mock drafts. Like some people have him in the lottery and some people don't have him in the first round at all and aren't even really kind of mentioning him as one of those types of guys. So I think he is a question mark. I really do think right now we don't really know exactly what we're going to get out of Taylor Kinney. It's just going to kind of play out on the court. But, I do know that he is really, really good at getting downhill. Kind of think I don't know about Maxey because to me Maxey is such a good shooter that I don't really think Kenny is that quite yet. I think he'll maybe be in like the 34 to 36 range as opposed to the 37 plus range. But I think he can really get downhill. That's one of his strengths, kind of maybe like a Devon Dotson type of player that Kansas could have next year. But yeah, he again, to me, is the biggest factor on whether this Kansas team is, getting out of that first weekend, making a push, to the Elite Eight, Final Four, or if Kansas is just going to be another, first weekend exit.
Yeah, completely agree. Again, KU's kind of been floating in this, you don't want to say mediocrity, but from KU standards, 4 or 5 seed, which I think a lot of people are plugging KU into that same realm with this new look roster. Hey, we can have a few breaks. We can have a few things go our way. And if Tay Kenny as a freshman wants to be, maybe it's a lot to ask to be Devon Dotson was as a sophomore, but if he wants to do that and play like a first round NBA guy, then yeah, KU is going to be right there. And a big reason why is Tyron Stokes. The guy that probably would have been the best player in the transfer portal had to be the transfer portal. He's projected to go number 1 in the NBA draft in 2027 in the way too early projections, but a big bodied guy who's probably going to be the 3, but can play some 4, I'd imagine, for KU. A great rebounder. Jeremy Case said at Hawk Talk the other night, he's a really good passer. He's going to bring so much. And Jack Ritter, I got to give him credit, man. He had a great point the other day when we had him on, talking about how he's probably a little bit easier of a guy to build around than Darren Peterson because he doesn't have to be a volume shooter. It seems like Stokes is going to impact the game in a lot of ways, doing things more than just be a really, really fluid scorer.
Yeah, I mean Stokes is your do it all type of guy, and just from kind of what I've heard, it sounds like he's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit as well. Kind of being that secondary initiator for this team, and for me, what stands out about Stokes, and it's funny because this is the quote knock on him from other people is his attitude. Just he had kind of the whole thing at his high school where he ended up, going over to play in Seattle for Jamal Crawford's team. He left his high school in LA area to go play for Jamal Crawford's there in Washington. That was a whole thing. But to me, like his on the court demeanor, like he plays with that, I don't give a you know what attitude all the time. Like just aggressive, aggressive, aggressive. And Allen Fieldhouse is a building that just feeds off of that type of energy. And I think kind of contrary to, Darren Peterson, I think Stokes is going to be such a fan favorite just because of his energy, the way he just wears his heart on his sleeve every single game, and it'll just kind of be a whole different vibe and feel than what Darren was. Kind of a little quieter, and obviously it didn't help Darren that he wasn't playing very often, but. I love Stokes' demeanor so much. I've watched him probably more than anybody who's coming into this class from the high school ranks. And every single time I watch him, I just fall more and more in love with his game. One of the stories that kind of stands out to me, I didn't know it at the time, but he and Brandon McCoy at Michigan are really good friends. Had no idea that this was the case until I interviewed them after. But they were basically playing against each other, and Tyron, I think he kind of had this hard foul on McCoy or whatever, and McCoy stood up and like said something to him, this and that. They're jawing at each other. And Tyron just goes like guard me, bro, like guard me. Like I've been guarding you all game, like, and you're scared to guard me, this and that. Like you can't even talk. He just brings just such an edge to the court that I think, Bill Self, I think he loves that. I think Kansas fans will love it. And of course his talent is up there with anybody.
Yeah, I love that take, especially because, you're making me think of Jayhawks of old. And in terms of demeanor, Peterson was more so like Andrew Wiggins or Brandon Rush, where you just kind of go out there and you ball out. And, it's still a great sight to see. You love it. Still favorite players, all that. But there's something else about the Jalen Wilson, the Devontae Graham, the Christian Brown kind of guys that want to bring the fans in with them. And I completely agree. That's what Stokes will do. And it'll be fun to see that. Sam Lance joins the show from Field of 68. All right, well, let's talk about the guard spot. You talked Rosario. That's kind of the big question, I think, from a starting five standpoint in terms of, TK is going to be at the 1. Stokes will be at the 3. I think Big Paul, especially because, Reeves has a little bit of question mark, will be at the 5, and then Keanu Dawes will be at the 4. But before we talk Dawes and everything that he might bring that's better than last year's bigs, quite frankly, the 2 spot, Leroy Blyden, Dennis Parker Jr., and then Cole Rosario. We recently found out that Parker could potentially have another year at Kansas. He could potentially play 2 years. Blyden, of course, was just a freshman last year at Toledo, the MAC Freshman of the Year. Talk about those 2 newcomers in particular, and maybe with Rosario, what's going to set who apart in terms of getting the starting minutes, getting the bulk minutes at that spot?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting debate because, if you play a Kenny and a Blyden together, that's, 6'2", 6'1", that's 2 little guards that you'll be playing. That's kind of what I am leaning right now. Bill Self ended up going with. I think, he kind of likes having those 2 little guards. And if you have a Stokes Dawes 7-footer and Reeser and Baya, you have 3, pretty large positionally sized players behind it. I think it's fine. Leroy, he's just, a electric ball of fire is really what he is. Kind of just your lightning in a bottle guard, can really shoot it. And that I think is something that Kansas has really been missing the past couple of years, is just a guy who just shoots it off the dribble. It is a threat to kind of pull it at any time. Kind of, making comparisons to the past, really high ceiling comparisons, kind of like a Devontae Graham who has, no thought whatsoever. Yeah. He's just going to shoot that thing. I think that's kind of what Blyden will bring. So I do kind of really like the pairing with him and Kenny, just being able to, kind of switch off the ball handling duties. Obviously, like I said, Stokes will be in that as well. Rosario to me is more of a wing. Uh, Not really in that, guard, quote guard conversation. I think he's more of a wing. I think he'll kind of, play that backup to Stokes, play that, other shooter kind of coming off the bench. Dennis Parker's where I think it does get interesting because he is a really big-bodied, strong, experienced type of guard. He's kind of been around. I think he was at NC State. I forget exactly where he's been, but he's kind of been around
Yeah,
college
Radford was the most
basketball.
recent, but yeah, started at NC State.
Yep. So, he's just kind of a totally different look than what Kansas has with those, kind of the Kinney and Blyden. So it is going to be interesting. And I also wouldn't sleep, Sean, on Luke Barnett. I've
Okay.
heard some really good things about his play. And he's another guy that can just shoot the cover off the ball. He actually might be Kansas's best shooter coming in as a freshman. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at with the guard spot there. I would lean right now, the two smaller guards and then having, the guys like Barnett, Dennis Parker, kind of your niche, kind of more role guys coming off the bench and filling in the gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And agree on Rosario too, because I think not that playing the two would be necessarily out of position for him, but generally when Coach Self has had two guys out there, while maybe one of them is the primary ball handler, the other guy is also, handling the ball. And who knows how it'll look with Stokes, and Jalen Wilson took the ball all the time in transition. So, we don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but the two little guards has worked before at Kansas. And I love that comp to Devontae Graham. Who knows what Blyden's going to turn into in terms of, becoming one with the fans like Graham did. But in terms of size, in terms of skill set, yeah, I'll be using that one again because I like it a lot. Hopefully he can turn into a Devontae Graham type player because Devontae was awesome as a freshman. If you remember in 2015, the only reason KU lost to Wichita State in the second round of the tournament was because Devontae fouled out, and he was the best player as a freshman in that game against Wichita State, and of course ends up going to the Final Four in 2018 for KU. That was a blast. A word on Keanu Dawes as well. Maybe not the sexiest name in the portal initially, but then you look at some of the rebounding percentage numbers and looks fantastic because the guys last year were not good rebounders. When you talk about efficiency, you have Dawes, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Reeves is in this category as well, 95+% rebound efficiency on both ends, if I remember correctly. That's huge because generally as a big, unless you're really special, a stretch four or anything like that, or a dominant five like Doak, you might not be the best scorer or be relied upon incredibly heavily to score, but you got to rebound the ball. And it seems like Dawes and Reeves, and again, I think Paul will be in this category as well. Hell, throw Stokes in there too. They're going to be able to check that box.
Yeah, I think rebounding is actually going to be kind of one of the biggest strengths of this team. And Dawes, to me, was just the perfect, just from the way this team was built, is the perfect four-man, right? Like you don't necessarily want to have kind of like the two true bigs, kind of like a Michigan, where you don't really have somebody who can stretch it. As we saw, I mean, I think Dawes hit what, 3 or 4 threes against Kansas
Yeah.
in Allen Fieldhouse, if I remember
Everybody
correctly.
did.
Yeah, well, that is true. That just happens. But
Right.
so he could stretch the floor a little bit, and then yeah, you mentioned the rebounding numbers. I also think Stokes didn't really mention this, but I think Stokes could play a lot of four, and maybe even Dawes play some small ball five and have some lineups. Maybe a lineup where you have a Kinney, Blyden, Dennis Parker, Stokes, and then Dawes, and kind of really get out and run and play that way. So I think the Dawes edition was perfect because he could be that small ball five. He's kind of just the prototypical four man that you want in college nowadays, and now gives Kansas a bunch of lineup versatility, kind of up and down.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about some NBA Jayhawks and your thoughts on Peterson, but one more about this upcoming season. You mentioned Barnett. Who are you most excited about in the freshman class? Because let's not forget that Kansas is bringing in, a top 3 freshman class. Of course, it's highlighted by 2 of the guys we spoke of, and Stokes and Kenny. But you mentioned Barnett. Davion Adkins, I think, is a guy who sneaky is going to get some minutes, even though that's hard to do as a freshman big. And we just talked about, we think that, maybe they're not first team All-American bigs, but really solid bigs that this Kansas team has. And Trent Perry, heard good things about him. I mean, who are you most excited about for the freshman?
I'm very curious to see what Atkins, can do if he finds his way into the rotation. I think that would be kind of a big positive for him, as if he is playing, kind of, 5 to 10-ish minutes, maybe even, 15 on a good night, for him to kind of get acclimated and come in. I think that will say a lot about, how ready he is. Trent Perry is one of my favorite players that I've covered in high school basketball. I've been doing it for like 3 years now. Uh, in my opinion, he's listed at 6'5". That's probably generous, probably 6'4". If Trent Perry was like 6'7", 6'8", like a true quote wing, in today's world, I think he would have been a 5-star, like top, 10 type of player, because his athleticism is that good, like that crazy. Uh, I encourage you guys to search Trent Perry in my Twitter, and I have this video of him putting on just an absolute show, dunking the basketball in warmups. That is just the type of athlete he is, and I'm not sure he'll play his first year, but he's a guy that if he develops any sort of jump shot, I mean, it's over. I mean, he's going to be an NBA player if he can kind of develop a jump shot. But really solid defensively. I just think in practice he'll give them so much in terms of just being able to simulate, crazy athletes, like kind of whatever they need to simulate in practice. He'll be there to be able to do it. And really, that's kind of like this whole freshman class. Like you look at it, there's besides Stokes and Kenny, there's just really good role players, like guys who are really, really good at one specific thing. Like Barnett, it's his shooting. Trent Perry, it's just kind of his defense, his athleticism. And then Davion Atkins, I would say probably his athleticism as well, being, a 6'9" kind of big. So a lot to like about the freshman class.
I'd imagine you're probably similar to most of us in terms of the NCAA's new 5-and-5 rule, keeping 28-year-olds out of basketball, that sort of thing. No more red shirts. Do you think that increases the chances at all of guys staying? I mean, I know there has to be some issues resolved regarding NIL and what the transfer rulings are going to be. Can you only transfer once without having to sit out, anything like that? But as well as anybody, as a KU fan, it's frustrating when we do talk about these guys like Adkins, Perry, Barnett, and we also know that the reality of the roster being the same next year or having most of the same guys, it's not a reality. So maybe this 5-and-5 thing is one step to help that.
I'm not so sure it will.
Okay.
To be honest, like with 5-and-5 being a thing now, I'm going, if I was, a prospector advising one, I'm going to where you're going to play, right? Like Leroy Blyden, is he making whatever he made at Kansas this year if he were to go to, let's say, like let's say he was able to get to Duke, right? And not play
Right.
at Duke, right? Like a lot of these guys, I would say, like, an Atkins or Luke Barnett, you don't know if you're going to play a lot at Kansas freshman year. Like it almost to me is more beneficial to, okay, let's go to Miami of Ohio or, whatever mid-major where I know I'm going to play and then, produce and cash in. But, it is, I guess, kind of a gamble. You have to produce to be able to cash in, or else then you really kind of get lost, if that makes sense. But we'll kind of see it play out. I love it. First of all, 5-and-5, it's going to make our jobs a lot easier for sure. Not having to
Oh my God.
track down who's eligible, who's not. But it'll be interesting to see how that kind of, plays into it.
Yeah, well said. I mean, you got to get the job to get the experience. You got to get the experience to get the job. One of those sort of things in college athletics right now. Sam Lance, field of 68. Hey, Darren Peterson goes number 2 overall to the Jazz. Your thoughts on that? And then a couple other guys getting opportunities in the summer league. Trey White goes to the Heat, who right now are lacking wings. So you think there's an opportunity there. Melvin Council to the Pelicans. Zeke Mayo had played with the Cleveland Charge, and now he's going to be playing summer league with the Atlanta Hawks. So your thoughts first on Peterson, and then, what these guys have to do in summer league to latch on to an NBA franchise.
Yeah, I said it actually on a show yesterday, kind of previewing Peach Jam. Since I'm a Kansas guy, they asked me about Kansas and Darren. I think the Wizards are going to regret this decision in about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, I mean, Darren Peterson, in my opinion, and the next however long, is going to be one of the best players in the NBA. He's going to be a perennial all-star. I really think what happened kind of at Kansas was a complete fluke, and I don't even think he was 100% really much at all the whole entire year, and he still averaged 20 a game, and at times looked like the best player that I have seen play basketball in person before. So I think the Wizards are going to regret it, but I think the Jazz is kind of a perfect fit for him. They kind of got all these bigs, and now they have Darren and Keontae George. If I'm the Jazz, I'm just saying, Darren, Keontae, do your thing, chuck up a bunch of shots, and we'll have Walker Kessler and Jaren Jackson and all these guys just go get it. So I think it was a good fit for Darren. It just I feel like all these Jayhawks just get sent to Utah, and then we never really hear about them again. I don't think that's going to happen with Darren.
Yeah, fair enough. And, we have had a cup of coffee in Utah with Ochai and Azubuike, and Ochai and Jalen Wilson are going to be looking for new homes. Certainly those guys are talented. We hope that they latch on somewhere. But any thoughts on those three, or those two guys, I guess, from last year, and then Zeke from 2 years ago getting a chance? We've done a lot of conversation this week about, just kind of being who they are. And with Trey and Zeke, that means shooting threes, hitting threes. And with Melvin, that means being whatever that animal is, like, doesn't come to mind, but kind of being that little animal that helped him have a great motor. I think that's going to be the key, and we'll see just kind of if the fit happens.
Yeah, excited for all those guys, obviously, to get their opportunity, especially Zeke Mayo. I saw him at EYBL Kansas City, and that dude loves ball so much, Sean. Like, he was working the scorers table and just doing random stuff there, like for the entire 4 or 5 days, 8 hours in the gym every day. So really happy for Zeke, because he works really hard. Loves the game so much. The other guys, Trey and Melvin, excited to see what they can do. I mean, Trey kind of left Kansas a bit on a sour note. Didn't really play well to end it, but he was so good kind of all year long. Hopefully, he's able to knock down some shots there for Miami. And you said Melvin's with the Pelicans, right?
Yep.
For summer league. Yeah, I'm excited for him too. I don't think Melvin, if you told him, however long ago, whenever he was at Wagner, that, hey, you're going to be on an NBA summer league team, I think he would think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We're cheering for him and all those guys. Sam, what's coming up here as the offseason rolls on Field of 68? Of course, we got KU football. And then before you know it, I mean, basketball is going to be back in full swing. We're going to have the Vegas tournament, the Players Era 8, if you will, MTE. And that's going to be here. And then we're going to be hanging up the Christmas tree. But in the meantime, what do you got on Field of 68?
Yeah, it's about to be Peach Jam here. And honestly, that's my favorite event of, I've been to multiple Final Fours. I love Peach Jam more than any basketball event there is. I mean, it's just the best. Like, all the coaches are there from all levels. You kind of get to watch the next generation. So that's coming up. I think July like 13th through 20th, something like that. And then it's actually my birthday month, so I kind of get back from Augusta. We'll have my birthday celebration, and then from there, it's just kind of chilling for the off season and getting, all of our preview stuff ready to go, kind of for next season. Doing the high school recruiting stuff.
Yeah, totally. Well, hey, Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, that's going to be an absolute blast tracking that. And where can people find you on socials, particularly your Peach Jam coverage? That's really cool with all the coaches and, like you said, the next generation of talent.
Yeah, of course. Follow at the Field of 68 on X, and then I am at Slants Hoops. Sam Lance. All my friends nowadays, they just call me Slants. So Slants Hoops on X and on Instagram. I've been decently active trying to get my Instagram going a little bit too. So I would appreciate you guys interacting there, and then be sure to subscribe to the Field of 68 Daily. That is our, everything college basketball newsletter in your inbox every morning. And we're also doing, our high school content. We'll have, all sorts of season preview content on there as well.
Sam Lance, Field of 68, really appreciate your time, man. Hope you have a great holiday weekend. And when the season gets closer, we'll catch up again, but appreciate it.
Sounds good, Sean. Enjoy the 4th, my man.
All right, will do. All right, more coming up here on Rock Chalk Sports, ESPN Kansas City, and KansasNation.com.
I'm Keith Langford, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
This is SSJ. Winter in Kansas City doesn't mean your lawn takes a break. It means smart homeowners get a head start. Let David and his crew from Custom Lawn and Landscape prepare your yard for a greener, healthier spring with winter fertilization, soil conditioning, and pre-emergent treatments that stop weeds before they start. Because when the snow melts, you don't want to start fixing your lawn. You want to already be winning. Trust Custom Lawn and Landscape, treating your yard now so it looks incredible later. Visit CustomLawn.com to schedule your winter services today.
Great deals store-wide. It's hot and you need a pool. This pool, now $29.99, or this pool, $39.99 installed. Hot tubs and swim spas priced to move. This spa, only $49.99. Swim spas, only $16.99. Sit in comfort with higher quality patio furniture with 4th of July specials like these. Load up summer essentials with the best chemicals, toys, and accessories. 4th of July sale going on now at Family Leisure.
Back here in the Kansas Nation studio for Rock Chalk Sports. Thanks to everybody listening on ESPN Kansas City, watching live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and of course, listening on ESPN Kansas City, watching KansasNation.com. All of our socials you can find at the Kansas Nation, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Kansas Nation on Facebook. We appreciate the support, and all of our loyal listeners who are tuning in over this holiday weekend. Thank you guys a lot. Hope everybody has a great weekend planned for the 4th of July, getting some outside time, getting some pool time, perhaps some grilling, perhaps a cold lemonade or two. Enjoy yourself this weekend. Hey, spring and summer are made for backyard fun. If you're like me, you have kids running through the grass, family cookouts lasting past sunset. Nothing ruins time outside, however, faster than fleas, ticks, and chiggers. That's why families trust Custom Lawn and Landscape to help keep their lawns beautiful and protected all season long. Their home insect control program helps defend your lawn from those pesky bugs so your pets and loved ones can enjoy the outdoors more comfortably and safely. Right now, when you sign up for the season, your first application is absolutely free at Custom Lawn. First application free. It's a simple way to take back your backyard this spring and summer. Visit CustomLawn.com to schedule your free first application with a seasonal insect control program. Custom Lawn and Landscape, helping you love your lawn without the bugs. All right, we've been looking at our KU football opponents. Last couple days, we've looked at the Missouri Tigers and the Long Island Sharks, and now we'll take a closer look at the Arizona State Sun Devils. Kansas will take on ASU on September 19th. Again, that's the Union Jack Classic, first ever college football game at Wembley Stadium. I remember when this news came out, that was almost groundbreaking for how cool it is that Kansas was chosen as a team to be a part of this. And again, it's a situation where Fox Big Noon Kickoff deemed it big enough to go out there and broadcast live. It's going to be an 11 a.m. kick. The national pregame show will be broadcast live from London starting at 9 a.m. Again, the first ever college football game inside the stadium. Lance Leipold, when this came out about Fox Big Noon Kickoff, said, quote, "We're extremely excited to have Fox's Big Noon Kickoff come to London to preview the Union Jack Classic. Big Noon Kickoff does an outstanding job of showcasing the pregame pageantry of college football. Having them at the Union Jack Classic will make for a truly special environment as we take on Arizona State in the first ever college football game in the iconic Wembley Stadium." And then Jordan Bazant, the executive vice president of Fox Sports, said, quote, "Fox Sports prides itself on being the home of big events, so we couldn't pass up an opportunity to bring Big Noon Kickoff to the historic Wembley Stadium, home to so many iconic moments in sports. With Big Noon Kickoff and the Union Jack Classic now woven into that storied legacy, we can't wait to take our viewers along for this international adventure, and we're thankful to Brett Yormark, Scott Draper, Travis Goff, and Graham Rossini for helping bring this one-of-a-kind event to life," end quote. 11 a.m., KU ASU. Again, it'll be a 2-hour pregame on Saturday, September 19th. Interestingly enough, the first Saturday game for Kansas after taking on LIU Friday, September 4th, and then Mizzou Friday, September 11th, both at the booth. So that is awesome. And, you know, this came out a while ago, and it was like, wow, I'm shocked Kansas football has put themselves on the map to this point. Of course, the last 2 seasons have not gone as hoped from a win-loss standpoint, but still, KU is no longer the KU that they were majority of the 2010s, where they were essentially a doormat for a lot of the Big 12 programs before the Coach Leipold era. Now it's time to get Arizona State back. We'll take a look back at last time these teams faced each other, and this was not last year. This was 2 years ago, of course, with the Big 12 scheduling. Not going to face every team every year. Such a heartbreaking loss for KU. It's interesting because yesterday Dan and I were talking on the show about the games that Kansas has given away late in the past 2 seasons, and the fact that it's become more painful because KU, again, has been 1 win shy of bowl eligibility. 2 years ago, kind of a perfect example was when Kansas went to Tempe for this game at Arizona State. Particularly frustrating because Kansas had already had a frustrating start to the season. Before this game, Kansas was 1-4, 0-2 in Big 12 play. A KU team that many people had looked before the season started at the schedule and said, man, I could see 9, 10, dare I say 11 wins. KU lost to Illinois. They lost to UNLV. Those were games where similar situations happened, where Kansas felt like had so many opportunities to win the game, they couldn't get it done. There was also a game in the conference season early against West Virginia. A similar situation happened. Well, Arizona State over Kansas, 35-31 in Tempe. This game was 14-14 at the half. KU led 17-14 at the end of the third quarter. And then KU scored 14 in the fourth quarter, but ASU scored 21 in the fourth quarter, and they won game-winning drive from Sam Leavitt, 35-31. This is exactly what we discussed with KU's defense and primarily secondary giving up chunk plays when it mattered most. This was Kobe and Melo's senior year in the secondary. Sam Leavitt, who now is going to be the quarterback at LSU after an awkward removal, I won't even say removal, awkward, step aside from ASU last year in the middle of the season. He led the Sun Devils down the field for a touchdown. He was just 14 of 24, but had 4 touchdowns. And then Jalen Tyson, top 10 pick in the NFL draft this year, he had 6 catches, including 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns for Jalen Daniels through the air. They both went to Quentin Skinner, but again, late touchdown from Tyson. ASU stole the hearts of the Jayhawks, and it was a part of a trying year. KU would fall to 1-5, 0-3 in Big 12 play. Then KU would eventually go on a run. Almost had that November to remember before kind of laying an egg. The final game at Baylor. Kansas now an opportunity to take on Arizona State and hopefully find a way to avenge that loss. When you look at Arizona State this upcoming season, again, they're not going to have Sam Leavitt. Here are some of the top recruits that they brought in from the transfer portal. Wide receiver Reed Harris, he comes over from Boston College. He's a 4-star transfer. And then Omarion Miller, 4-star running back, comes over from Colorado. That's going to be a big get for ASU. 4-star quarterback who's going to, in his mind, I'm sure, be the starting QB, Cutter Boley, he comes over from Kentucky to Arizona State. And then you got some 3-stars. I'll mention a few of them. Linebacker Owen Long comes over from Colorado State. Got a edge rusher, Jalen Thompson from Michigan State. Wide receiver Raiden Vines-Bright comes over from Washington. Got safety Lyric Rawls, of course, coming over from KU. He is listed as a 3-star. They've got a lot of talented players coming in. And in fact, ASU in the 16-team conference is listed as 3rd best in the Big 12 behind just Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. 25 commits for ASU. Interestingly enough, Tech, number 1 on this list, has 22 commits. And Oklahoma State, number 2, with a new head coach, 55 committed in the portal to Oklahoma State. That's absolutely crazy. But it's Arizona State under a very young head coach in Kenny Dillingham getting a chance to prove themselves again. Last year, ASU went 8-5 in the Big 12. They, 2 years ago, people forget, were in the Big 12 championship game. They had that win over Kansas and then really proved themselves. Last year, a little bit of a step back. You didn't have Leavitt the majority of the season. ASU still found a way to qualify for a bowl as they were 8-5, 6-3 in Big 12 play. This is kind of representative of the challenge the Big 12 is going to be for Kansas and for all these teams. The Big 12 championship game last year was Texas Tech against BYU. Both those teams were 8-1. Tech would win. Then they would go and get blasted by Oregon in the Rose Bowl, which we know led to them saying, all right, we didn't score any points, losing 23-0. Let's go get the best quarterback. They paid all this money for Brendan Sorsby, and that turned into a whole fiasco. Utah went 7-2. Houston, Arizona, and ASU were 6-3 teams. And then you had 5 teams at 5-4. 4 teams, rather, 5-4. TCU, Iowa State, Cincinnati, and K-State. KU and Baylor were 3-6. UCF and West Virginia were both 2-7. Colorado was 1-8. And Oklahoma State, leading to the firing of their coach, they were 0-9. And a lot of people think Oklahoma State is going to bounce back in a really big way. So we'll wait and see how that looks for the Pokes, and we'll talk about them a little bit later, as that's going to be the final game of the season for Kansas football in 2026. But again, Arizona State, the first game in Big 12 play. Kenny Dillingham has made that program exceptional compared to what they were before he got there. Kind of an awkward fit in the Big 12. They had to rely on Jeff Sims majority of the season as their quarterback last year, and now they're going to get a transfer from Kentucky who's hoping to make some noise 2025. And again, looking at Kansas' schedule for 2026 season, after KU returns home from London, they get Middle Tennessee. Then you're at Utah. Not a game a ton of people are pointing to, but they went 7-2 last year. That's a game Kansas absolutely should have won. Forgettable game for Jalen Daniels, unquestionably. Kansas relied heavily on the running game with Daniel Highshaw and Leshawn Williams, completely destroyed Utah. Kyle Whittingham was totally outcoached by Lance Leipold, but brutal mistakes in Jalen Daniels' final game as a quarterback for KU led to some key interceptions, to say the least. And Kansas, despite really having that game won, was 1 win shy of going to a bowl game for the second consecutive year. Early in the season, KU gets K-State in the Dillon Sunflower Showdown. The number is now 17. 17 straight years K-State has beaten KU. Last year, maybe the worst overall performance from KU. And that was really frustrating back on October 25th because it wasn't a K-State team that was playing good ball. It wasn't a good K-State team, but they came to Lawrence and really had their way with KU. Chris Kleiman, no longer the coach there. It's going to be Colin Klein. An opportunity for Coach Leipold to pick up his first win over K-State, but he's going to have to do it in enemy territory as KU will head to K-State for the Dillon Sunflower Showdown on October 17th. Interesting that 1 year after Kansas had 3 bye weeks, you only have 1, particularly since you're going across the pond on September 19th. Last year, Kansas, because they played in week 0 and a couple other factors, ended up having to have 3 bye weeks. Now you just have 1, and it's early in the season. So October 17th at K-State. October 24th, KU will host Baylor. That's a game you got to win, and I think that's how KU needs to look at it. You had a couple of those games last year. You did okay in them. Beat Oklahoma State, who was terrible. Didn't look spectacular against them, but you got to win. Baylor coming to town, even though it's not going to be the same Baylor team, you really don't know what to expect. On paper, that needs to be a win for a KU team. If you want to go 6-6, you got to win your home games against teams projected to be middler finishes in the Big 12. KU is then at TCU, always a team that's going to be in the conversation, never going to be easy. That's on Halloween. Another game that Kansas needs to win, November 7th against UCF. KU beat UCF. That was one of the few games that they've won in the past couple seasons by one possession or less. They got that kind of inexplicable goal line stand after almost giving it away in Orlando last year. UCF comes calling on November 7th. Take advantage of your schedule. Take advantage of having a bottom-tier team at home. That needs to be a win. KU is at West Virginia following that. No, it's not the same West Virginia team. We know that. But still, that's a team that had just 2 wins in the Big 12. That's a game that you need to go up there and realize, hey, it's going to be 7 points one way or the other. This needs to be a win for a team that wants to win 7-8 games at least this upcoming season. KU then gets BYU at home. That's a team that was in the Big 12 championship last year. They've got what many consider to be a top 10 coach in Kalani Sitake. KU beat BYU back in the 2023 season. You remember the bone-crunching hit by Kobe Bryant led to a scoop and score against Parker Kingston. KU, an opportunity at home on senior day to defeat BYU. And then you're at Oklahoma State, and that's the game that a lot of people have discussed being really scary. They're worried about Oklahoma State with Drew Mestemaker coming in as their new quarterback. He threw for 1 billion yards at North Texas. They don't like that KU is facing Oklahoma State the last game of the season. Still, that team went 0-9 last year. They've got 55 newcomers in the transfer portal alone. When you look at this in whole, and I know we're going to preview each of these teams individually, but in whole, you've got games that you should feel confident winning. People feel how they feel about Mizzou, but I'm going to call that a win. Mizzou is a team that's bringing in the number 11 best transfer portal class in the SEC. That's not a top 5 transfer portal class. Mizzou comes in. You were up on them 21-6 last year. You got to win that game at home if you want to go to a bowl. Long Island's a win. Call Mizzou a win. Okay, you're 2-0. Say you lose at Arizona State, beat Middle Tennessee, you're sitting at 3-1. Lose at Utah, 3-2. At K-State, who knows? Dylan Edwards' revenge game. Let's give it to the Hawks, 4-2. Baylor at home, 5-2. At TCU drops you to 5-3. UCF at home, there's your 6th win, 6-3. At West Virginia, say you lose on the road, 6-4. BYU at home, you get one on senior day, 7-4, and then lose at Oklahoma State, 7-5. Just kind of spitballing right there. There's a path where Kansas can win 7-8 games this upcoming season. Again, if you go 3-0 in the non-con, which is very much doable, then you got to win at the very least home games against Baylor and UCF, and then get one on the road or beat BYU at home. There's your bowl eligibility. That's very doable for this Kansas team. But as for Arizona State, as I said, the most talented player coming in the transfer portal is Omarion Miller coming over from Colorado. He, of course, is going to be public enemy number 1 in London. Kansas has a really exciting roster headlined by Dylan Edwards, the transfer from K-State by way of Colorado. Andy Kotelnicki returns as KU's offensive coordinator. A lot of opportunity for KU to make some noise on the offensive side. And hopefully there's going to be some sparks flying. Shout out to T Swift on her wedding day for the KU offense this upcoming season. Hey, more coming up. We're going to close things down and officially get your weekend going. Independence Day is tomorrow. I hope everybody is excited. Rock Chalk Sports rolls on after this. ESPN Kansas City, KansasNation.com.
I'm Tyson LeBlanc. You're watching KansasNation.com.
Celebrate the summer with savings at Crown Toyota. BZ models, 0% APR with a $500 cash incentive. RAV4 models, 4.99% APR. 2026 Toyota Tacoma, 3.99% APR. Get into a 2026 Tundra for 2.99% APR.
At the heart of a city lies the restless, the visionaries, the bold. You made the bet. You took the risk. You showed up when nobody else would. Now, success is within reach. The question is whether your finances can keep up with you. From redefining events to guiding local youth, providing lifelines of industry, or reshaping wellness across the region. You deserve a financial partner that matches your ambition. This is where Merit Trust comes in. Local people, real relationships. A team that sees your vision and says yes. Because bold business owners deserve bold financial partners. At Merit Trust, we handle the finances, so you can take care of the bold. Merit Trust Credit Union. Business, thinking, bold.
This is SSJ. Winter in Kansas City doesn't mean your lawn takes a break. It means smart homeowners get a head start. Let David and his crew from Custom Lawn and Landscape prepare your yard for a greener, healthier spring with winter fertilization, soil conditioning, and pre-emergent treatments that stop weeds before they start. Because when the snow melts, you don't want to start fixing your lawn. You want to already be winning. Trust Custom Lawn and Landscape, treating your yard now so it looks incredible later. Visit CustomLawn.com to schedule your winter services today.
Sean Kellerman back, Rock Chalk Sports, rolling solo today. Want to shout out Trey Myers, Tyler Brewer, and Elijah Schmidt behind the cameras today, taking care of us here at the Kansas Nation studio. I want to tell you about Jayhawk Checking from Central Bank. Really cool debit card. Showcase your spirit. Jayhawk Checking allows fans to carry their pride wherever they go with the official Jayhawk debit card, a simple way to show that school spirit every day. Central Bank is proud to support the traditions and communities that bring people together. As the proud community banking partner of the University of Kansas, Central Bank is committed to serving Jayhawk fans with banking options designed for real life, on campus, at work, and everywhere in between. Learn more about Jayhawk Checking and the exclusive debit card, jayhawkchecking.com. That's jayhawkchecking.com. Central Bank, the proud community banking partner of the University of Kansas, member FDIC. Cup check. We've got a couple games underway right now, Argentina and Cape Verde, and then later on tonight, it is Colombia and Ghana. That's 8:30 kickoff at Arrowhead Stadium, and that one is going to be awesome. We had Bethany Bowman on the show a little bit earlier. If you missed anything, check out the archive show on YouTube for video feed or Apple Podcasts, Spotify for audio feed. Colombia, Ghana at Arrowhead. Perhaps you want to get out there. A little bit more affordable tonight, but big favorite Colombia against Ghana. Colombia minus 550, Ghana's plus 400. Of course, the 90-minute money line, a little bit different in these elimination games. Colombia is minus 235. Ghana is plus 750 to win this thing in 90 minutes, and a draw is plus 330 in 90 minutes. So Ghana kind of one of the, I want to say Cinderellas, but similar to Cape Verde, who's in action right now against Argentina, who has become one of the odds-on favorites. Some countries that people thought had a great chance, like Germany, have been eliminated. But when you look at the monsters, you've still got Spain, France, Argentina. They still got a shot, round of 16. And again, the fact that you've got Portugal against Spain coming up next week, that'll be a blast, as, of course, will USA and Belgium. I expect downtown Lawrence to be a buzz, as it was last night. I talked about this earlier in the show, and still proudly have our Algeria flag here on our desk at Kansas Nation. Unbelievable atmosphere, downtown Lawrence, supporting the Algerian national team. Riyad Mahrez, the captain of Algeria, announcing his retirement after the loss as they fell 2-0 to Switzerland. But incredible opportunity, incredible job by everybody in Lawrence, everybody in Kansas City locally to be such a welcoming presence to the World Cup. So Colombia, Ghana, and then again, after that one, you're going to have the round of 16 set for the 2026 World Cup. Novak Djokovic, by the way, picked up a win in Wimbledon, 105th match at Wimbledon. That equals the record from Roger Federer. Martina Navratilova, she won 120 singles matches at Wimbledon. So in terms of the men's side, it was Djokovic winning his 105th match. So that's something going on right now in the world of sports. The other thing that we talked about throughout this week, the Jaylen Brown trade, which pretty much has been globally accepted as a fleecing of the Celtics by the 76ers. Jaylen Brown goes to the Sixers in exchange for Podcast P, a couple firsts, and a couple second. Now the Sixers are trying to make more noise. When you look at the Sixers as is, Tyrese Maxey, second Tyrese Maxey reference throughout the show, He's an all-star guard, great shooter. Of course, one of the many great Kentucky guards that has gone on and had success at the NBA. VJ Edgecombe, who I think was better than everybody even thought he would be, despite being highly regarded in his own right coming out of Baylor, a guy that reportedly the Celtics wanted if they were going to send Jaylen Brown over. That's a pretty good backcourt when you add Jaylen Brown to that. Then you've got Joel Embiid. Who knows if Embiid's going to stay healthy? It's fair to always have that question. But they're not done adding right now, supposedly. According to sources, the Sixers now in the market for LeBron James. And as I'm talking about this right now, I want to see what these odds are. When we looked a couple days ago, after LeBron told the Lakers, thanks, but no thanks, the Warriors were in the lead to land LeBron at minus 120. The Sixers are not in the lead, but they've now, according to DraftKings, made their way up to plus 600 as the third most likely team to land LeBron. The Miami Heat, who I was scoffed at when I said they would be in the conversation for LeBron, they've moved in the last 2 days from plus 2,200 to plus 900. They are fourth favored right now to land LeBron. The Warriors are no longer the favorite. The Warriors are plus 180 to land the King. The favorite right now, wouldn't you know it, the Cleveland Cavaliers at minus 120. So LeBron, just a kid from Akron, right? He's had a couple stints with the land. He brought them a championship his second time around after taking his talents to South Beach and winning a couple, and then he won the 2020 COVID bubble, whatever you want to call it, with the Los Angeles Lakers. So the Cavs right now, according to DraftKings, are favored to land LeBron James, but the Sixers very much in the conversation, and it seems to me like it would be a good fit, honestly. If you have LeBron starting as your 4, you got 2 guys who can fill it up around him in Brown and Maxey, ultra-athletic Edgecombe, and then an all-star MVP caliber when healthy center, Joel Embiid. That's a really good team. And I think that's, like I said, pretty much globally accepted as a very good team. But the other known suitors, as I said, for LeBron, the Warriors, the Cavs, and the Heat. We don't know when LeBron's going to announce this. Supposedly, Shams Charania, I heard from sources that LeBron is going to take his time before deciding on his next destination. That's got to be attractive for the King. And again, I go back to the fact that he's had a lot of fun. He's close with Steph Curry. They've played together the USA, Olympics over the years. I still think it's probably going to be the Warriors, but now maybe he's going to return home for his swan song, be it 1 year, 2 years, whatever it will be. But excited to see where LeBron goes after kind of a strange 8-year career with the Lakers. Probably can't be seen as a Lakers all-time great. They did get a championship. The championship might have a little bit of an asterisk by it because it wasn't, a full legitimate season, but LeBron and AD still got it done. We'll wait and see on that front how it looks. But again, World Cup coverage, that's going to continue throughout this week. Monday, we're going to have great coverage. We expect there to be watch parties for USA against Belgium. That's going to be Monday night at Lumen Field in Seattle. Again, downtown Lawrence. Unfortunately, no more Algeria, but it's going to be a buzz for all the continued World Cup coverage, and can't wait to bring that to you. Hope everybody has a safe holiday weekend and enjoys themselves. Again, get outside, enjoy it, spend some time with your family, enjoy some brats, dogs, burgers, whatever floats your boat, some cold beers, and we'll be back on air for Rock Chalk Sports on Monday. I want to give a special thank you to Elijah Schmidt, our technical director, assisted today by Trey Myers and Tyler Brewer. They'll be with us next week as well to help everything behind the cameras. So looking forward to next week's shows. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you missed anything, check out Kansas Nation on socials, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Can't wait to continue our coverage. And before you know it, football and basketball season will be here. Enjoy the World Cup, though, in the meantime. Sean Kellerman signing off for Rock Chalk Sports. Thanks for listening on ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com.
What's up? I'm Bodie Ray with Kansas Baseball, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Together, we're elevating our potential, our pride, our traditions, and our dreams. Together, we're opening up a whole new world of possibilities. Elevate your University of Kansas experience with Jayhawk checking from Central Bank. Central Bank and KU, elevating together.
Hi there, Gary Joslin with Joslin's Jewelry. I'm not the class ring company. I'm a mom and pop jewelry store for 42 years. We were recently voted the gold medal #1 jewelry store in the greater Kansas City area by Ingram's Magazine. Come see us at Joslin's Jewelry, 9529 Antioch. Joslin's Jewelry, the jeweler you'll recommend to your friends and family.